Hello, and welcome to episode 2.3. I am James. In this episode, we'll learn how to describe consonants in detail. There are three ways to put the consonants of English into groups. Or, in other words, there are three ways to classify the consonants: voicing, place of articulation, and manner of articulation. We will explore these in this episode. Firstly, remember that, to produce speech, the air that we breathe in goes to our lungs. After this, it slowly comes out of our mouth. The first place it reaches on this return journey is the vocal cords and the glottis. Many consonants have two forms, a voiced and a voiceless form. The main difference between them is caused by whether or not there is vibration in the vocal cords and the glottis. You can think of the vocal cords as two small doors. It is possible for them to be fully open or almost closed. When the vocal cords are almost closed, the glottis is narrow, so the air must push through the small space between the vocal cords. This makes the vocal cords shake rapidly, which causes them to vibrate. This vibration creates voiced sounds, such as the v in veal and the d in deal, and the j in join. However, when the vocal cords are completely open, the air flows freely through the wide glottis. Because the air does not need to force through the vocal cords, they do not shake, and thus there is no vibration. Sounds produced without vibration of the vocal cords are called voiceless sounds, such as the f in fo, the t in toe, and the sh in show. You can feel the difference between voiced and voiceless sounds yourself. Touch your Adam's apple and say a long s and a long z. You should be able to feel the vibration for z, but not for s. You can also see the difference between them in the image on the screen now. Soon, I will show you which consonants are voiced and voiceless. Now, please answer some questions. The video will pause and then restart after you answer them. After the air has left the vocal cords, it enters the oral cavity. We learned in the previous episode that consonants are made by blocking, or at least limiting, the flow of air. The airflow is blocked or limited by the articulators, the tongue, teeth, lips, alveolar ridge, hard palate, and soft palate. The place of articulation of a consonant describes where the air is being blocked or limited in order to make the consonant. To make all the consonants in English, there are 8 places of articulation. Let's discuss them now. 1. Bilabial sounds. To make these, both lips touch each other. The English bilabial sounds are p, b, and n. 2. Labiodental sounds. To make these, the top teeth touch the bottom lip. The English labiodental sounds are f and v. 3. Dental sounds. To make these, the tip of the tongue touches the teeth. The English dental sounds are f and v. 4. Alveolar sounds. To make these, the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar ridge. The English alveolar sounds are t, d, s, z, n, r, and U. 5. Postalveolar sounds. To make these, the tip of the tongue touches the area between the alveolar ridge and the hard palate. The English postalveolar sounds are sh, zh, ch, and j. 6. Palatal sounds. To make these, the body of the tongue touches the hard palate. The only palatal consonant in English is y. 7. Velar sounds. To make these, the back of the tongue touches the soft palate. The English velar sounds are k, g, and ng. 8. Glottal sounds. To make these, the glottis limits the airflow. The only glottal sound in English is h. One English consonant, w, actually has 2 places of articulation. It is labial, which means it is made with the lips, and velar. You will learn more about this in the next episode. Looking again at the diagram of the vocal tract, you can see where these sounds are made. Now, please answer these questions. So far, we have discussed the amount of vibration and the place that the air is blocked or limited in order to describe consonants. However, these 2 ways are not enough for a full description. For example, b and n are both voiced and bilabial. T and s are both voiceless and alveolar. So, what is the difference between these sounds? The answer is how the air is being blocked or limited by the articulators. This is called their manner of articulation. And in terms of this, there are 5 ways to make the English consonants. 1. Plosives. To make these, the flow of air stops for a short time and then suddenly starts again. The English plosives are p, b, t, d, k, g, and another symbol which I can't say on its own. This sound is the glottal plosive, which is made by completely closing the vocal cords, whereas they are almost closed for voiced sounds. They are called plosives because the restart of the air is explosive. In contrast, consonants like s or ul do not have a sudden stop and then restart of the airflow. So, in words like sold, loss, leaf, roll, the air never stops completely. 2. Fricatives. To make these, the lips, teeth, or tongue limit the airflow. This means that the air must be squeezed out through the small space between them, which causes friction, hence the name fricative. Therefore, the airflow never stops. This is very different from plosives, which do have a complete stop of air and then a sudden restart. The English fricatives are f, v, f, v, s, z, sh, zh, and h. 3. Affricates. These are a combination of a plosive, which means that firstly the air is completely blocked, and then a fricative immediately afterwards, which means that secondly the air is slowly released with friction due to being limited by the articulators. This is why the IPA symbol for affricates contains a plosive symbol and then a fricative sound. The English affricates are ch and j. 4. Nasals. To make these, the soft palate is lowered, which allows air to flow into the nasal cavity and out of the nose. In contrast, for all other sounds, the air flows into the oral cavity because the soft palate is raised, thus stopping the air from entering the nasal cavity. Regarding nasal sounds, while they are still shaped in the oral cavity, the air does not come out of the mouth. The English nasals are n, and n. If you want to check that you are correctly producing nasals, then put your finger on the side of your nose. You can feel your nose vibrate when you say a nasal, but not when you say other sounds. 5. Approximants. To make these, the airflow is only slightly limited by the two articulators. For example, the tongue and alveolar ridge for r, because although they do move towards each other, they do not touch each other, so they are not close enough together to significantly restrict the airflow. So, the air flows quite freely. For this reason, approximants are sometimes called semivowels. The English approximants are w, l, r, and y. If you are studying very advanced phonetics, you may see two categories instead of approximant: liquid and glide. All liquids and glides are types of approximant, so don't worry about these two manners of articulation at this stage in our introduction to phonetics. This is the end of episode 2.3. Before we finish, please answer these questions. Thank you for watching.